Humanities, back with a Bloodborne series. Paddy and CJ playing a game that you like, trying to find some insights. Miyazaki and Yarnum, we love them. We want to talk about the things that we are finding in Bloodborne. Do you like Demon Souls? Do you like Dark Souls too? Twin Humanities and Bloodborne. Twin Humanities and Bloodborne. Do you like demons and Dark Souls? Do you like Bloodborne too? Twin Humanities and Bloodborne. Twin Humanities and Bloodborne.
Friend listeners, and welcome back to Twin Humanities. My name is Paddy and I am the one who is orange coloured. With me as always is my coffee hued pal CJ. Say hello.
Hello. Today's coffee, which is desperately trying to rescue me because me do not talk good, is Ethiopia, and a wonderful apple crispness amidst the mid blend that it has. I needed something a little sharp, a little fresh, not too heavy, not too syrupy, but something to just sort of surf upon during this podcast. And I've only taken 2 sips thus far, and to say the words fallen out of my mouth very badly would be an understatement during the conversation that we had previously. So I need taste, I need moorishness, I need them to fuel into conversation. And do you have cheap tea bags in a cup?
I have placed cheap tea bags in a cup, added boiling water and milk, and then spun it around a bit, and then removed said tea bag.
Who would have thought we could do a podcast?
I feel like your coffee news needs a jingle. Like, swoosh, whoosh, 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 coffee news.
That was kind of a bit of a Paula Abdul moment, if ever it was needed. I think that would make me Paula Abdul and would make you the cartoon cat.
I'm okay with that.
Was the cat orange?
I'm going to say yes without any research.
I think it might have been. So yeah.
Resisting the urge to Google it. No, it doesn't matter.
So let's just. Oh God, that's good.
How was the sippy? Was it out of 10?
I'm just getting the apple that's flourishing through in the aftertaste. It's probably not as hot as I'd ideally like it because we're doing quite a long podcast, but often coffees do change their flavour as they cool. So
interesting.
I'm quite happy for the citrus crispness to rise within that. Who'd have thought that I could say those words earlier on?
You couldn't say the word words earlier on.
I couldn't.
That's interesting because my tea, when I drink a cup of tea, I'll find that it tastes exactly the same all the way down.
Really?
Yeah, except sometimes when the bag bursts and it's got bits in the bottom and
there's something quite reliable about the that cheap supermarket brand tea.
It's not exciting, but it is dependable.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a rom-com, it would be the boring, dependable guy.
Who would have thought
the woman has to choose between?
Podcast. Right, so we're all
Team
here
news.
in this giant huddle, in this paddling pool of life, splashing about. Really about Bloodborne, but we're going to diversify a little bit today. We're going to siege from Bloodborne a little bit into Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin. So we're going to be talking about that in a little while, because that's now out in the UK. Strangely enough, it's out in the UK before it's out in the States, which is very unusual. So we normally get stuff on a Friday, but with it being a bank holiday, we came out on a Thursday here, and I think it's next Tuesday in the States. So we'll be giving you a bit of a first look at that. So Bloodborne, the reaction across the internet has continued to be incredible, and there's also been a backlash.
It's been a weird one, hasn't it?
There's been stuff that I've not looked into that I've heard about with people complaining about violence, I think.
Wait, whoa, hang on. What?
And I think there was a complaint about violence in Bloodborne. I haven't seen. It's
called Bloodborne.
I haven't seen the specific article, so I can't give an informed opinion on that. But I do know that I don't know. It's not something that's been a particular turn-off for me, and I'm not really into gore. And I remember Hidetaka Miyazaki saying that they worked pretty hard and even getting the correct colour for the blood, because they didn't want it to seem sort of too slasher.
Yeah, I mean it works. It works within the context of the thing you're doing. Like I'm struggling to understand that one.
I don't know. I mean, there's the other side of it. I've seen folks like the very talented Chris Schilling talking about Bloodborne on Twitter, and I think that when there were a few aspects that he'd struggled with, I think a few people kind of jumped on him, which is a shame, because everybody's got a right to an opinion and stuff. But I remember sort of him saying like, right, I get it. No more Bloodborne criticism, which is quite sad, because he's an articulate guy and he's got cool opinions. So, but again, I kind of came in on the tail end of that, so I didn't know sort of quite what had been said. But I know Bonfireside Chat, Dark Souls 2, and Video Gamer have all had really insightful discussions on the game, but that's not all been uniform praise. It's been the aspects that it does well, and also where those folks sort of say that it misses the mark. So there have been belting discussions across all three of those as well. So very, very much enjoyed. But yeah, it's interesting to see the opinions of people that like Simon Miller of Video Gamer was saying like the game's not for him, but he would recommend it to people because he thinks it might be for them, or he'd like to see where the game pushes him. There's been a few folks, and I think this might be a real strong suit of Bloodborne's, that a few folks that have tried it thinking that it might not be for them, and with some of those folks even having previous with Dark Souls games, and not clicking for them, and yet really, really falling into Bloodborne. So it's now sort of settling within this sort of question mark, I think, of the hype, the reviews, and people really getting into it and talking about it and finding that same sort of passion that we had when we sort of first started talking about the games and stuff, and that becoming infectious to others. There was a really funny review that I saw on Amazon, which I'm going to bring up now. I wish I'd brought.
I can hear you doing the type machine.
I wish I'd have thought of this for the show, because it was absolute genius. Every now and again you're kind of looking down and you're like, yeah, 5 stars, 1 star. Right, let me see, because it's a belter. I hope you're still there. Here we go. There's actually another 1 star there as well. Let me see. Right. Where is it? Repetitive, irritating, boring, with clunky controls and camera views, which add to the punishment. It's not even rewarding when you actually progress past the point where you've died 5,000,000 times void. That's not the one that I was on about though.
But is that 50,000?
I don't know. I think it's more than that. I think it's quite a lot. It's 50 million, I think.
50 million?
50 million. That's a lot.
Wow.
He must have been counting those out.
They clearly need to get good, don't they?
My God, I'm the only person that thinks this game sucks arse. Jerky camera angles, ridiculously hard and unoriginal gameplay are the order of the day. With this complete car crash of a game, please don't believe the hype around this game and save yourself £40+ Thought Evil Within was much better. Really not impressed. That was the one that I read.
Amazon 1-star reviews are brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I like. See, my favourite 1-star reviews are the ones for items where someone's like, ordered this, didn't turn up, 1 star.
Yeah, or people that go like there's say if it's like a game that's due out sort of this Christmas, it'd be like, the game looks brilliant, 5 stars.
Yeah.
Not really review, is it? Not really. I wouldn't use that as a buyer's guide.
That's just you being excited about a trailer that's probably still a CG trailer at this point.
We have tobogganed right off track. But to go back to criticisms again, I did watch an IGN chat.
I remember you talking about this. So elaborate, sir.
Bloodborne, and I wasn't really looking at sort of much of the visuals because I think there were a few sort of areas that I hadn't hit yet. So I was really curious to see what the various folks talking about it thought about it, and IGN's on my YouTube list purely because the Bloodborne exclusives that they had prior to launch, and there's a gent there called Dan Stapleton who said that the game does a really poor job of explaining itself, of its weapons and systems, sort of saying that Portal 2 basically ran you through what you should be doing and the weapons in your hand and then let you go, and that Bloodborne doesn't do that, which I can maybe say I wouldn't completely agree with. But folks were saying about there was the complaint from one of the people there about save points and how the lanterns were spaced quite a way apart, and somebody else pitched in, well, there's a real adrenaline rush when you unlock a shortcut and you find that leads back to a lantern that you've already used. And Stapleton sort of went on to say it kind of got a little bit whiny at this point, sort of saying that he didn't find the shortcuts that other people were talking on about, and I don't know. There was that image that went on Twitter last week where it was like, I've sorted out Bloodborne, and somebody got like a map on there and all the objectives were in the corner, and there was a marker leading people onwards and stuff.
A tiny mini map, some goal lists on the side, an XP bar.
It comes back to I wonder, because the game gives such a lot of freedom for you to test out the enemies and find things in the map and find sort of discover little quirks and things like that. Because a few folks maybe are used to games sort of leading them on or showing them where to go, as to whether there's a degree of decision paralysis there.
Maybe. I mean, I find it's like I've progressed quite far in Bloodborne now. I find it's got the most. It's more akin to Demons than anything else I've played, in the way that it feels kind of like new again, and it's you're working it out yourself. Because I say, like, take for example Dark Souls 2. It's much the same sort of thing as Dark Souls 1. It's not that hard to work out what you need to be doing and how things work because you've done it before. Whereas this is definitely a different thing than you've had before, and it's more on you to experiment and play and fiddle. And I think the first area really does a really good job of showing you how to do that.
It does. I mean, I heard a few things on when I was listening to the Dark Souls 2 podcast today, where they were saying that about insight, that the game never really tells you
Oh God, no.
That is. And if there was anything that Dark Souls didn't really explain itself well about, it was humanity.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering if that's maybe fair criticism and fair comment. But I don't know. We've both played Bloodborne in different ways. I know that you've uber cracked on. I think you're by far and away the better gamer between the two of us.
Oh, thank you.
And whilst
I wouldn't say that. I'd say that I've pretty gelled with it a bit faster.
No, I genuinely think that you're a better gamer than I am. And I've said before, one of the things that I like about the Souls games is that there's no one particular path through it. There's no set skill level that I have to be funneled down to reach the next section. I can figure it out. I can take as long as I want. I can level up, or I can try various weapons, or whatever it might be. Because I know you're really far in the game now, whereas
I am tickling the end.
Yeah. Whereas, sort of for me, I kind of, I don't know. I enjoyed going back to the way that I played the very first Dark Souls, which was just kind of wallowing in the world a bit. And if I fancied, like once I unlocked all of the weapons, I wanted to buy all of the weapons, and I wanted to try all of the weapons out. And that for me was still a degree of fun. Like also sort of seeing not only which I liked the best, and I was flicking between like loads of them at that time, still loving the threaded cane, and especially the sort of whip crack away Castlevania effect of the secondary attack. But I found that the saw spear, the
the one that's a bit like the cleaver but pointy.
Yeah, the sort of the long attack on that was working really well against certain enemies. I haven't tried. I know a lot of people have clicked with what's the other one, the one that has like the massive uber halberd thing that a lot of people consider is the best weapon.
Not the axe, surely.
Is it the saw axe? Is it?
There's one that's just like a battle axe that becomes like a longer battle axe. Do you know that one you mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have said
one of the basic ones. Yeah.
Yeah, have said that's really good for people like Father Gascoigne and stuff. But once I got the opportunity to buy the Kirkhammer, like part of me then was just again went back to my Dark Souls mentality of I'll have a run around the area and save up for the Kirkhammer. Save up to get the stats to use the Kirkhammer. And at first I was like, God, I can't really see that far ahead of me because this thing's like towering above me and I can't see enemies coming towards me with the hammer bit. And then I kind of took that into consideration, and when I sort of started twatting into some of the fat lads with that, and they were just fucking going down. Like proper going down. That was the point where it was like, cool, I've now got my area effect with the whip, but I've also got this almost like this ticking time bomb when I see one of those concrete hand dudes like coming towards me, and that's the point where it's like, yeah, you're nearly here. Charge up the R2 and boom, you're down, and then secondary follow up and the motherfucker's gone, rather than like lickety 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 lick.
I think those hammer guys are a really good indication early on of the different ways you can approach scenarios in this game.
Yeah, go on.
Because I have talking about weapons and that, you've been very tempted to pick up, all of the weapons. I have not picked up any other weapons.
You've not bought any, or you've not picked any up?
I've picked a couple up, but I have only used the breaded cane, the fish finger of style, and the blunderbuss since the beginning. Oh, and the torch as well for dark places, but that's not really a weapon. I've only really used the whip and the gun, and isn't
there something else about the torch that it can like set people on fire and things?
It might be able to, but I've never tried it. I much prefer having the blunderbuss in my left. Because, it sort of, if you think, well, I've got this blunderbuss, apparently it can parry stuff. And being weak early on against those, the guy with the brick the big guy with the brick. You know, my first couple of fights against him, I remember in the alpha, I got ripped apart. I was, you know, getting torn apart by him. Like thinking, this can't be fair. This doesn't feel right. I'm losing all the time. And then once I twigged that I could parry him, because his size. Usually you'd think, anyway, in a Dark Souls, for instance, you see a giant enemy, you think, probably can't parry him, he's just going to smash me one. But because you're shooting them and kind of, you know, knocking them off the balance, you can parry everything? Like, even the pig?
How are you... Really?
I think you can parry the pig. I'm sure I've managed to do it. I mean, I tend to go for the butt stab on the pig just because it's hilarious. But I'm fairly sure you can parry... You can even parry the cleric beast. With your gun. It's hard, but I'm certain I've fired my gun and he's gone and fallen over and shown me his face so I can put my hand in it.
Because I've really not gotten on with the guns at all.
I think you have to click. I think you definitely have to click with it. And I think you have to run around for a while and practice.
I think the aspect of only being able to collect 20 bullets has sort of reminded me that I'm not using the gun. I've gotten into... trying other stuff with it. I did get a gun that could shoot 2 bullets at a time, but found that I was running out of bullets then at that point, like quite a bit.
Let me fill you in on there. There's something that the game doesn't really tell you, but I had to work out. Okay, so you know when you pick up more than you can carry. So you've got 19, and you pick up 4.
I know what you're saying.
And they go to the box. When you respawn, if you've got stuff in the box, it will refill you.
No, but that's not what
brilliant.
I'm saying. It's the entire opposite of that. That I'm getting to the point where I've still got 20 bullets, and it's then not putting anything in because I've still got 20 bullets, and I'm like, oh fuck, I've just not been using the gun. And even in points where I've had boss fights and I've used the gun, I'm so conscious of the fact that I'm trying to use the gun that I'll shoot twice and it will knock the other person out of the paralysis because I'm like, I've shot the gun, it's gone off again.
Bang! So, I find a good tactic when you're learning is to fire the gun and then dodge, because if you fired too early, you'll still be able to dodge the attack that's coming towards you anyway.
There's also the aspect of not knowing sometimes if you've connected or not.
Yeah,
that's when my second shot comes in. I'm just like, especially on Gascoigne, I was like, I've shot you, girl, just pulled you out of your shit. Oh no, I'm running away, hide me in the tree.
I think Gascoigne is a really good test of that. I think because Gascoigne, for me, I pumped Gascoigne on my second go, I think.
Can I just throw up the curtain now that we are going to be talking about Bloodborne up to Gascoigne? So
yeah.
Given
everything past that will be vague.
Well, everything, yeah.
Because I've seen some shit, man.
I've only progressed a little way beyond that. So yeah, we're going to be talking specifically up to Father Gascoigne, but you've all played past Father Gascoigne. It's only me that's lagging behind like some ignored lemon meringue. I don't.
But I mean, I fought Gascoigne, by myself, because again, the servers weren't on, there was no help. I didn't know about the trick you can do that makes him easier. Didn't know about that. I had to fight him straight, which was an experience. I think I burned through every item I had in my inventory trying to beat him. But once you lock that counter shot against him, there's that moment where it clicks and you think, "Go on, my son! Oh, I can do this!" And you realise that you can do it. Again, it's the Dark Souls thing of be patient, watch him, look what he's doing, and respond rather than just going, right, I'm going to attack, I'm going to dodge, I'm going to attack, and I'm dead, and that's not fair.
Because you see, I had the thing with Gascoigne where for going on instinct from the start, I actually did pretty well. And I think from the start, I kind of got him down to his secondary form. And then the more that I tried to vary that around, the worse I got at it. And I will say at this point, I took days to beat Gascoigne. Absolute days. And the only reason that I did beat Gascoigne was because that was where I brought in my first summon. And the reason that I kind of got him beyond that secondary transformation was because he was distracted.
I think that's exactly what you were saying earlier about the fact that you think you're not quite as good at the game as I am.
In general, I don't think I'm as good at games as you are.
Yeah, but I'm not very good either.
Jesus Christ, what does that do for me? Right, podcast over, bye.
Yep, we're done. We clearly don't know what we're talking about. I found that it was doable, but it was on the edge, of doable. But once I beat him, doing it by myself, I felt like a god. I mean, I would say from starting the game to getting to Gascoigne and beating him the first time, I would say took me about 4 hours, 5 hours maybe.
Cool.
That's from the beginning, and that is with playing a little bit at Sony as well. So I had a rough idea, where some cool stuff was that could help. I knew that I could buy some gear to make me stronger, that sort of thing.
You kind of rattled through the alpha quite a bit as well.
I had, but then on Tuesday, I was sat on hold on a phone call. This is a slight side story, but it's a good indication of how you can get better. So I was sat on hold to Southern Electric trying to sort something out. So I'm sat on hold, and I thought, I've got a PS4 controller there. Fuck it, let's start Bloodborne again. So I made a new character, and I made a hideous character whose face is basically a triangle. A horrible green triangle, which is not important. Made a character, thought, I wonder what I can do. Let's see how good I am. While I was on the phone to Southern Electric, I managed to not only beat the very first werewolf without a weapon.
What, the one that's in the
dirty, bloody one?
The surgery bit?
Yep.
Okay.
Managed to beat that barehanded, which is a feat. The trick, butt punching.
Okay.
You can do the charged backstab attack with your fist, and that's pretty damn good. But I also managed to get all the way to Gascoigne, so I got rid of the cleric beast, got rid of Gascoigne. I would say start to finish half an hour. Rattled, and I felt like, wow, that's easy, and that was without really upgrading anything. The only thing I did differently, I think I bought the hunter gear that was at the shop as soon as possible because it is good, and just bollocked through it really, really quickly. I thought,
but there's not. Have you noticed there's not really that much difference between sets? I've not found.
Sort of,
because I'm looking at the opening set that I had. And the Hunters one, which I got into, there were sort of fluctuations on sort of a few stats, but it still felt with those stats that we were almost back to kind of Demon Souls again, where I was kind of like, what's that one again? And then sort of squinting to try and look on the other side of the screen to see what the applicable text was alongside the stats. But really I've gone with, a new outfit, and I look like some sort of crazy reverend with snooker gloves on. Yeah, I'll go with that. So it's really been kind of fashion souls for me.
Exactly, and that's, I think, for the first few hours, yes, I agree. It is fashion souls. It is completely fashion souls. As long as you're not wearing that starting gear, the shirt and pants, because they're not very good, you'll be okay. There's nothing too unusual there. They vary up or down a little bit, but you can't level up your gear in this game. It is, your coat is your coat, which is actually quite nice, because that's a problem I always had in Souls, was that I'd pick an outfit and I'd start upgrading it and I'd pick up more gear and think, well, that gear's not as good as the gear I have, but I'd always forget to think that actually I've upgraded this gear, so that gear could be better than the gear I have on now. But not be able to work out, I couldn't pass it in my head without checking a wiki to work out if it was better or worse. Whereas this time, it's the stats are there, a variance of maybe 10 up or down either way. And at the start, initially anyway, as you get further in, more specialised gear does become available that has, better resistance against, for example, thrust or magic or fire. There is definitely sets that are better against other stuff. Plus, but the fact that they are a bit more similar and just vary a little bit, you can fashion souls super hard.
But I quite like that the outfits that I've seen thus far. It just feels like I've not worn them in games before.
Cool coats and hats.
I mentioned that with regards to the threaded cane, that it just felt like I hadn't used that in games before. Whereas I was looking at saws and spears and hammers and things. It's like, no, I have never used a cane before. And whilst yes, I have used a whip, that was an attraction. But to kind of run along in the outfits and looking quite gentrified or quite regal. It just feels a little bit different. And even there was a picture on Twitter last week of someone that was playing with sort of a mask that was sort of came down the sides of their cheeks and then sort of covered scarf-like over their nose. And they removed that mask, and there was essentially like a mask of blood over their face.
A tan line. A tan line.
Yeah, blood tan line. And I was like,
love that.
That's amazing.
And I've really enjoyed the way that the blood does like attach to the clothes you go, because if anything, it's a good indicator of how long it's been since you went to a lantern. Like, you look at yourself and think, I'm bright red. Maybe I've been out a while.
It's also an indicator of how much close quarters battles that you've been doing as well. Because if you straight in the middle of it, you be crimson. If I'm using the threaded cane, the whip attachment, probably not. But my favourite thing at the minute is running along with the Kirk hammer and stripes of crimson going across it, and it makes it look like it's made of rock. It's kind of like which is why I've nicknamed it the Candy Hammer.
Nice.
Yeah. So although I did make the joke that went over many people's heads on Twitter, I'd say joke in inverted comma, that I called my Kirk hammer Grant because it gives me hope, thinking that somebody might remember Rare and the amazing musician Grant Kirkhope, but nobody did. So
that's a bit of a deep cut, I think, for Twitter sometimes.
No, I don't.
I think you have to set that one up. Maybe with a tweet a couple of days before that referenced it, and then do the joke afterwards. Maybe people would have got it. That's beyond me as well.
I'm not ashamed.
But yeah, no, like the fashion, and anyone listening that knows anything about me knows that in a Souls game or in any game, I like to look good. I like a neat character creator, and I like neat clothes. And dear sweet Jesus, does Bloodborne have neat clothes?
Yeah, I think that they're astonishingly well designed.
And they get, would you believe they get better as you go in?
I would 100%.
And not just more intricate,
that.
like cooler.
Yeah, I can believe that. And it was one of the things in, I mean, it's well versed that I absolutely fucking despise Dragon Age Inquisition. But one of the things that I didn't get on with amidst that was all of the clothes were shit. And when I started sort of trying to adapt the clothes, they still looked shit. And there's something about Japanese views of Western fantasy that, for me, conjures up the best clothing designs. And I don't know if this is just me looking at kind of the amazing artist that's on sort of Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and now Bloodborne, and also the guys that were on Dragon's Dogma. But all of the outfits there just seemed like really quirky and really different and really brilliant. They've got a flavour of those old sort of English myths and European sort of stories, but they got a little something else in the mix. They were processed with a different eye, and the end result was unique, was specific. And when I see Western designed armours like your Skyrims or your Dragon Age, they're just rubbish.
Just boring, aren't they?
Absolutely rubbish. So yeah, it's not surprising that we've fashioned in Dark Souls and in Bloodborne and in Dragon's Dogma, and to a degree, I know
carry on.
I know it's not really a view of Western ideals in the same way as the other two games, but carrying on the Capcom thing, you saw some of those designs in Monster Hunter, and they were just magnifico.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out as well that via the shop and via the Insight shop, I have purchased and acquired every single item of clothing that is available to me in Bloodborne.
Well played. Did you get an achievement for that, or was it just a personal?
No,
achievement?
I've missed loads still. I know there's more I've not seen. Because it turns out that quite a lot of the game is optional.
Well, Who was it? I think
because
it was,
I got to a point that feels okay. I'm going to be very vague here. I got to a point that feels like it might be the end or very close to the end. And I'm thinking, now I've just I've absent-mindedly watched some people streaming it on the PS4. While I've been kicking around. I'm thinking, I've seen some places that I've not been to, but that can't be right. So I sort of jumped on Twitter and kind of put a little calls out, and a couple of people said, yeah, there's a whole other couple of places. Like, where?
Well, Guy Woodward was saying that he'd seen people finish the game and they'd beaten about 8 bosses when he'd sort of fought about 17. And I was talking to... I went this afternoon to a coffee shop, funnily enough.
Really? It's not like you.
Was sort of rattling away with a few sort of notes for tonight's show, and I ended up seeing my friend Luke in there. And Luke, when I was like, "Are you getting Bloodborne?" And he was like, "Well, I don't know." And I was like, He was like, "Is it any good?" And this was like pre-embargo, and I was like, just staring at him and smiling. And he was like, "Really?" I was like, "Can't say anything really." Unrelated facial expression.
Can't say anything but look at my face.
He's now absolutely obsessed with it, and it's gotten to the stage that we were at where he doesn't want to play other games, and he's tried starting other games, but he wants to go back on Bloodborne, and he's found that there's been certain points where he's just wanted to go back through a level again because he's enjoyed it so much, but he's found something else in the level that's unlocked because of the place he is like way further in the game, and this has created a kind of a new fascination in him. He was saying like something that I've not really noticed other games doing before, because it's not made such a big deal out of it, and because he's enjoying just having fun and twatting things in the level, that he's consumed by it. And we did that. We said the thing about Dark Souls doesn't always let you play other games, and he was like, I'm thinking about getting The Witcher and stuff, and I was like, do you think that Bloodborne will let you play The Witcher? And he was like, he just kind of looked down and then smiled at me, and he was like, I don't know. And like his fiance was with him, and she was actually saying as well that she doesn't. She's not got a lot of time to kind of really watch him playing games a lot. She gets bored, but she's been fascinated by Bloodborne. And we were then talking about the fact that it's almost like an original fairy tale before they were Disney-fied. That the sort that were there to scare children and sort of keep them in line and make them go to sleep and that sort of stuff. But she's fascinated with the design side of it, and she's fascinated with the creatures that are coming forward. And for sort of a passive watcher who doesn't normally do that sort of thing, for her to be that engrossed is pretty cool in itself, I think.
Yeah, I've got some. Laura's been watching me play it quite a bit, and from a different angle than that, I would say she enjoys watching me not pay attention to things and die. There's a particular moment. Quite fairly on in the game, she was watching me play the other night, and I was sort of bollocking through, and it's quite difficult, but I was doing it, but it was tricky. And I sort of paused for a moment to look around, and I swung the camera around, and there was a rock flying towards me out of nowhere. I think I actually may have yelped, and then she pissed herself. I screamed like a girl. Thank you, Laura. I think she then proceeded to laugh at me for about 5 minutes. I beat the thing that did it eventually, but like the sheer idiocy that I had, because I could have easily seen where it was coming from if I'd have been paying attention. Like, it was my fault. But I think it does benefit from an extra pair of eyes, because like she must have seen what was coming and not said anything.
Oh god, as like a slight aside from this, Matt Lees on Twitter said that if you play Bloodborne with headphones on, it's kind of like life changing. And I was like, okay, right, I'll give that a go. And obviously, I've not got the sort of superfied 7.1 headphones or anything like that. Although there is a Bloodborne setting now on the headphones app.
I heard that, yeah.
Which I haven't quite tried yet. But I put in my headphones, and you can hear all the guys that are hiding whispering around the corner before you get to them and stuff. And the sound mix is incredible, absolutely incredible.
Well, this is great. This is really good because this leads me on to one of the few scribbles that I've written about this game.
Okay.
Is that Bloodborne has far more than vanilla Dark Souls 2 ever did. It has put the fear back up me.
Okay.
I am getting the fear, and if you listen to me a lot, you'll know what I mean by the fear. That fear of the unknown. You find a new area, like cool, a new area. You think, oh no, a new area. Anything could be here, and anything will be here. Probably will kill me, but I don't know where, and I don't know when. I have walked. When you just nudge the analog stick slightly, I have spent more time in this game walking than running.
Yeah, likewise. I think this
pacing, like eyes wide, like ears pricked, looking and listening for any clue, any hint of something that's coming, and it has caught me out a few times, regardless of that. And again, it's always been hilarious. Like I've never minded; it's always been funny.
There's that dichotomy, sort of when you get used to a level, and you know the way around it, you can just absolutely bomb around it and just have fun with it. But as soon as you then get into an area you're not sure about, it's just it's that slight sort of walking and then almost looking round a corner and just going like, how many? Fuck that. And also, I mean, a lass that I used to be in a band with used to have the thing with I think she said for most games, but specifically with like the Silent Hill games, that if she was in a corridor with lots of doors, she'd have to try all of the doors and see where the doors led to then make an informed decision as to which door she was going to take. She couldn't just go like, right, I'm in this first door, I'll go and explore down this corridor, see what's there. She had to open all the doors and look inside all of the rooms before
you have to be methodical. Decision. You have to be methodical about that. Like I am totally with her on that. Like you have to be methodical, or you've got to pick right. Like, and it's that whole thing of the crushing sense that like, oh god, there's something out there, and you see a movement in the middle of a wood, and you think, what the fuck was that? Is that a bad guy? Or like the other player ghosts have put the piss up me more than some regular enemies. So you know when you see other players running around in your world. Again, actual legit yelps of fear. I
like that they're now sort of chalk drawings again, because I know that the sort of flat shades in Dark Souls, but I always liked the sort of the chalk etchings of Demon Souls, and I think that the colour that they've used for the bloodstain sort of visions as well is just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Have you tried much? Have you played much with the notes on the floor yet? With the gestures added in?
No, I haven't.
They are amazing, and so far, I'm going to say thank you to 98% of people who have put notes on the floor, because 98% of them are helpful.
I think those are the 2%. It seems very knowing towards like the other games most of the time, with just like take a step forward, and it's not like just the outright lie it was in previous games. It was more like, hey, have you been here before? I have.
Yeah, and there's the standard as well, putting something behind like a statue of someone and then saying try thrust. You know, there's the standard silly ones that you're like, a bit juvenile, but okay, and like you don't mind a creative one. For example, in the menu you can choose like a two-parter, and the best ones I've seen all start with "Remember, man," and then a comma, and then the actual thing they want to tell you. And it's like some grizzled old veteran, like a grizzled old Vietnam guy has been walking through. It's like, remember, man, try sneak attack, or like just like don't give up, man. Like it's so good, and I've smiled at like basically all of them so far. Even the ones that have said, you know, try jumping off, have been funny. I don't think I found a bad note yet.
There's a lot of the quirks that I've heard about within Bloodborne or have seen, and sort of from conversations, I've heard different variations on them. That's really intriguing me a lot. Like everybody that seems to have figured out something about Bloodborne that I've had a specific conversation with has only specifically figured out one angle of it. And when
Yep.
somebody else comes in with, oh, this is a thing. Because when I was talking to Luke today, I was saying that those werewolves in the opening area of Yharnam, I find very, very difficult. Probably more difficult than anything else in the levels, just simply because they both come at once, and it's difficult to kind of beckon one rather than the other.
To be entirely fair, they are difficult.
And he said, if you use the torch, they're scared of fire. I went, what? And he was like, yeah, if you
because
use
they show you that at the start, don't they?
And I was like, what? And I it's not even one of those things that I never thought to do it, because we know from seeing something a little bit similar in Dark Souls 2.
In No Man's Wolf.
Yeah. But rather than me sort of feeling a bit foolish about it, it just makes me smile that somebody maybe had been holding the torch by accident and had just gone. And we also had a little thing, because you raced away in the game, and I was sort of really...
I couldn't stop. Like I cannot stop.
I was sort of... I'd marinate myself in in Old Yharnam, and I found something that you hadn't, that you'd moved on from.
I had completely walked past it.
But
completely and utterly, because when you explained where it was, and I went back, I was like, oh, I wondered what that was.
And I've heard a few variations on the way that people have sort of taken this on, but there's a young girl at a window, and she said that her father had gone on the hunt, but he hadn't come back, and her mum had gone out to look for her father, but she hasn't come back as well, and to keep an eye out for her mum, because her mum's wearing this ruby red rose brooch, and I'm pretty sure she gives you a music box, and at the time I was thinking, well, I could use that for Father Gascoigne, or if she doesn't give you the music, I'm pretty sure she gives you the music box.
But she does, yeah.
And at the time I was thinking like, I could try this on the boss, and then completely forgot about that side of things. I beat Father Gascoigne, and a few screens on found a corpse, and on it was a ruby red brooch. And so I was like, right, I'll go back to the girl. And games have conditioned us that if we're given a fetch quest, we fetch a thing, we take it back, and we get a reward. And I returned to the girl, and I got to that window, and it said, give the ruby red rose brooch to the girl, yes or no. And I gave it to her, and she just said, Mummy, my mummy's dead, Mummy, and just started sobbing. And it on the one hand, it caught me off guard. On the other, I was just like, running through that that sort of that conundrum that I've just mentioned, that you normally go on a fetch quest, you get a thing, you bring it back, you get a reward. But the game was playing into a human condition in this, and essentially by doing what I've been conditioned to do in games, I just robbed the girl of all hope. That her mum's dead, her father's gone, and she's barricaded in this house with no way of getting out. And I honest to God, I put my pad down and I absolutely cried. And sort of, I went into the kitchen to put a drink on and stuff. And the more I thought about it again, the more I started to get like a lump in my throat, and I started to tear up. And that's the Miyazaki magic in a big way, anyway. But when I was talking to Luke today, he said, "Oh, I don't think he'd spoken to the girl, but he found the brooch, and he was like, oh, I can squash that, can I, and get like the blood from it, or use the gem or whatever it was." And he's done it that way. And the lads on You Died blog have gone into a big piece about how they went about it, and I think theirs is far more elaborate. I haven't read it specifically. Because
it's a good read. I have read it. It is a good read.
I don't want those spoilers yet, but I love those boys to bits. So I don't.
It doesn't go that far. It's literally the bit you've done. Like they talk about that It's not too much past that.
But that's just really impressive. That was the first point where, even apart from situational storytelling and losing myself in the world and the people and the giggles and the horror and all that sort of stuff, that was the first point where there was the emotional hook that I had with Dark Souls. But to be affected to that degree, and for a game to do something that I've not seen games do before, i.e. to punish you for the route for following through on what you normally would, that's desperately impressive.
I have nothing to add.
I will say, even though I had problems with Father Gascoigne, I beat Cleric Beast on the first go.
I've still since the trial day, I've still not died to the Cleric Beast.
Yeah.
Somehow.
But I've seen folks that struggled with Cleric Beast and have finished Gazarin in one bash as well.
It's different playstyles, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like both fights require a very, very different approach.
I think the spin attack of that kind of halberdy type weapon, I can't think what it's called, but
it's the axe. It's the long axe again.
Is it Saw Axe? Is it?
No, it's the second one of the two choices. It's the Hunter Axe. It's the one that goes from small to a big one. He's literally using the same gear you are.
Because I think the spin attack of that is quite good against Gaza, from what I can tell. But
well, it's good against you when he uses it as well. So
yeah, what does the music box do exactly? Does it kind of pull him out of his rage?
You can use it. I think once in each phase of the fight, because he'll start with the gun and the small axe. Then he'll transform to the big axe and just two-hand that for a bit, and then he'll beast the fuck out. I think you can use it once on each phase to kind of stun him and make him go, "Arrgh, my brain."
So
when you play it,
what do you reckon to Old Yarnum and of itself then? The twists and turns, the design,
particularly Old Yarnum or Yarnum? Because
Yarnum.
Old Yarnum is a place in there as well.
Yeah, I mean we're talking about up to Gascoigne in this point. So.
Old Yarnum is further on than that.
Okay then.
Old Yarnum is a place. Yarnum Central is the bit where you start in.
Yeah.
And there is a place called Old Yarnum, which is a whole fucking place. Like, it does some cool things, some cool storytelling things. Things that I can't tell you about.
Fine.
Because
we'll talk about the thing that I want to talk about then.
Go for it.
No, I'm asking you a question.
Oh, so what do I think about the thing? It's a really good, like, the first area, Yarnum Central, is a really, really, really good sort of idea of how the rest of the game is put together. Because we mentioned shortcuts earlier and how you find them like, oh my god, I'm here, I know where I am, brilliant. You know, that's shaved 2 minutes off my day. I can do that now. Now, I mentioned I'm very close to what I think is the end. So I thought I'll do a bit of exploring, you know, see if I can have a dawdle around, see if I can find anything else. I found a shortcut back to the very first area that I had never found.
Really? And
connects two completely different places. Completely different. Like you'd never believe they would link up. I'm like, hang on. So there was a kind of a secret back way down a certain area, and then two huge great ladders. And then you sort of come up and you look around and think, hang on a sec. Wait, this looks familiar. And you wander on and think, oh, I'm here.
Isn't that a classic Souls thing? Though?
It's so Souls. And this is like the most Souls one. Basically, if you stand on a high place and you look around, if you see something significant looking like a building or a forest or a castle, you will go there. You will go there. If anything stands out as being like a particular, you know, like a massive cathedral or a big sort of tower, or you can see windmills off to one side as well, you can go there. Unequivocally, you can go there. And that's amazing. And it all seems to connect in the Dark Souls 1 way, where everything links together, but like physically. And I've not seen no crazy person's managed to extract the map data yet, but it feels like it links together properly. Like you can see, like you can stand at a place and look down and you can see, oh, that's the little bit under the bridge where the Cleric Beast is, or oh, over there, that's that bit I've just been at with that weird, oh, there's that plaza I was just in, or oh, look at that, there's that giant bit of tree that I just saw. From miles across the map, utterly miles. And you can see like late game areas that you won't recognise until you get there and then go back to the early ones and look up and think, oh, I was just up there, wasn't I? And it really, like, the very first area is a really, really good indication of how the rest of the game handles that. There is so many shortcuts and links, and, like, it's not just straight line, go here, go that way, the goal's over there, it's a straight line, that's what you got to do. If you take your time and, like you say, pay attention, explore, you will find shortcuts, and the world links together, and it just makes navigating it so much more fun. So much more fun, because you know, like, right, I'm nearly there, so and you find that shortcut back and think, brilliant, I can go I'll bank my blood echoes and I'll come back and I can just skip that whole bit and go straight through. Particularly for some of the boss fights, because some of the boss fights are rough. They are not simple. And I've tried really hard to not summon. Like, I've done a lot of the game. I think I've summoned for maybe one boss fight that was causing me utter nightmares. That's it so far. And I've managed to do a lot of them on my own, but a lot of the boss run-ups, if I was having to do the entire level and then the boss, I think I'd have gone mad.
I think it's... I mean, the point where I did summon for Gascoigne, it felt quite special. That it was the first time that I'd done it, and I got quite a kick out of seeing sort of the bell being rung and then somebody else coming into my game. It didn't... Having played the previous games, it still made me smile to see that happen within the nuance of Bloodborne, but for the first time. And there's no shame in summoning at all.
No, not at all.
It was one of those things where it surprised me with Bloodborne just how much I wanted to hunker down and it be a solitary experience. I genuinely did.
I agree.
But a lot of that comes back to my original play of Dark Souls and just how I didn't know what I was doing, and I did a billion things wrong, but in inverted commas wrong, but it was my best playthrough because everything I did was on instinct, and I've avoided conversations on the internet about kind of things that people are doing or any of that stuff. I've not looked in a wiki. I've just completely gone cold turkey on it, and if I've not been able to figure it out, I've not been able to figure it out.
And that's why I think, like, I think summoning is okay.
Of course,
I think you should try it yourself first. I think you get more. I think personally, if you do summon a lot, I'm not disparaging you at all. It's perfectly fine, perfectly legitimate. I think for me that the heart of the game is that you're on your own. It's the fear. It's that creeping through on your tiptoes, balls of your feet, trying to work out what's going on, without some other dude next to you going, "Oh, it's over here," look," and then just running off. Like,
but I think
the first run through of a level, particularly, you should do it on your own. I really do.
In the same way, summoning sort of not only adds a little something if somebody is struggling with the game or is a skill level sort of even sort of beyond the two of us. But it also gives people the opportunity that from the off, if they want to bomb through it together with a mate and have that bonded experience from the off, that's still a completely legitimate thing. And I am really curious to hear from those people who have purely done it as a co-op experience from the start together, and more so still those people that have done so that have never played any of the Souls games before, because I don't know, there's quite a lot of different directions that people can come from this and can go from this as well.
Oh, I agree. I think they're all, every way you can choose to play it is a legitimate way to come at it. There's no wrong way to play these games at all. Well, but everyone has their preference of how they and that's fine. Do what works for you. For me, it's the solo. For you as well, it's the solo. Forging the ground yourself and really trying to best it yourself. But I've heard some stories of people saying they've been having great fun just popping open the party chat and running through areas, learning them together.
The interesting thing is that I've heard, and I thought it was going to be exactly the opposite to this, was the people who have a more defensive play style with Dark Souls have seemingly, from what I've noticed on Twitter and stuff, have seemingly adapted quicker to Bloodborne than those who have a more aggressive style in Dark Souls.
That's strange, because, like, and I never considered myself to be all that defensive a player of Dark Souls at all. Like, I mean, I had my light shield, but I tended to roll fast and loose, you know.
You were by far and away the most aggressive of the
Johnny Big Bollocks over here, getting all up in the hizzies. But I found it's definitely a different skill set. But I think because I did, you know, I tried parrying quite a bit when I was playing Souls 1 and Souls 2. You know, I could parry a little bit. I wasn't very good at it, but I could do it. So I think I've had that pre-training that I know roughly what I need to do. Whereas, I don't know, I would have thought someone who was, you know, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle hiding behind the shield all the time would have a far, far tougher time, like, adapting, because it's a very different beast.
But in the last show, we discussed that you said that you couldn't have a defensive style in Bloodborne, that it didn't. The style was set up for you to be aggressive, and I said
I've sort of changed my mind on that slightly. But I've been playing it a bit, but I know what you mean. Yeah,
I said from there I found that my defensive stance, whereas it would normally be the shield up, I was still defensive, but defensive really became strategic. That I was judging where I could strike an enemy, which weapon I used to take down specific enemies. That defensiveness morphed into a strategicness of knowing. Strategicness isn't even a word, but
footwork defense.
Yeah, of where I could attack, where I couldn't attack, where to switch in with different weapons, and if anything, and we'll go on to this in a little while, but it's made me a better Dark Souls player.
Okay.
And yeah, the knock-on effect of that is pretty interesting. But something else I wanted to add, because I thought it was an amazing comment, was 8-Full Play have just put up a new podcast, which is pretty much a Bloodborne special. And with regards to the lack of a map in a game, they actually said that for them, there not being a map gave you a more intimate relationship with the surroundings. This one, I'm not sure if this was 8-Full Play or if it was Video Game. You should listen to both of those podcasts because they're amazing. But they said that it leads you to have a more intimate relationship with the surroundings, simply because you're not flicking up or referring to a map, but you're noticing landmarks, remembering turns and enemies and ladders. And I thought that was a really cool observation.
Yeah, you're learning the map because you're, I don't know, learning it in your brain.
No, it's not. It's not even kind of, I don't know, because you are looking directly at the surroundings rather than a circle that contains some lines, or flicking between sort of pressing start to see where you are on the map. Because you're actually looking at landmarks, it becomes memorable. And we've said before, in some of our favourite games, you know how to get to places just by thinking about it, even if the game's not on, because it's been so well designed, and because there's such a strong art direction in there, and such finesse with the way that the levels have been laid out, and the way that the enemies have been placed, that everything seems right, and it sits in your head and becomes memorable. And
I swear to God, I can already run some of these areas in my head.
Yeah,
I'm doing it as we're speaking. I'm running them in my head, and I can see them. And I haven't spent all that long in them, really, compared to, say, your Souls 1 and 2. Like, I can see these places in my brain.
So what was the biggest surprise for you in Bloodborne? Was there a certain moment that sticks out in your mind on instinct something that shocked you within the areas that we're talking about?
Within the areas we're talking... Oh, God, okay. Because there is a moment that stuck out that I absolutely cannot say. That it does things that you and I have talked about, and you and I particularly like. Okay. Yeah, you love when things do this, and that's all I'm going to say.
Cool.
But play it faster. I need you to play it faster because I need you to talk about it with me.
Well, I'm
going
there's obviously going
to
be progression for the next show, but we didn't need to go past this point anyway.
No.
And I seemingly naturally had a different agenda for this show. So
no, my biggest surprise for the from the first up to Gaza and the first two areas would probably be it would have to be when we were at at Sony and the preview day.
Okay.
The fact that I found the sewers by accident, just from wandering around. Like, I mean, I knew the area quite well because I'd done it, in the beta, or the alpha. Finding the sewers by accident that were closed off and they weren't there. And then managing to bash through them in one go. Just by watching and paying attention and even finding the first set of clothes in there. Like, oh my god, I found clothes. Like, it was that moment of, oh, you can find stuff. Which I think, before, obviously we're picking up items, but I didn't know if you could find, clothes and weapons and stuff. Like, could you just have to buy them? Like, the fact that I could feel my way through the area in the sewers by looking and paying attention and looking what was ahead of me and watching the enemies before I made a move, it's all part of that tippy-toe effect, that sort of carefully tiptoeing through, looking at everything first and planning my moves and really, getting that feeling that the game isn't unfair at all. Like, you can see what is coming. Generally, 90% of the time, you will be able to anticipate what is coming next. You just have to be watchful and attentive. And I think being able to go through the sewers, like I say, in basically one go without dying, even up to the piggy, without dying, it kind of just showed me how well designed it was, because like your starting stats, they're not very good, really. Like, in the grand scheme of things, when you start putting on better clothes and better, upgrading your weapon, you're like, oh god, how did I ever survive with this? But yeah, it's that idea that you can beat it, like you can do it, and I feel like if you go down a path that is wrong, it's not wrong. You can do it. It's happened to me a couple of times because I remember sort of going through early and beating a couple of bosses, and their names were like, why is no one talking about this boss's name? They're all talking about bosses' names that I've not seen yet. Have I done this wrong? But you think, no, I haven't done it wrong. I've just gone a way that's not recommended, some would say, certainly. To quote the Dark Souls 1 analogue, you can go to the catacombs at the start. You shouldn't. You absolutely shouldn't. But if you persevere, you can do it. And I wouldn't say this was on a par with how hard that is, because that's not a mean feat. But I went to an area that I definitely wasn't supposed to be at and managed to do okay, and it's an area I've gone back to 30, 40 levels, character levels later, and I'm still, and I'm finding tough, and I'm thinking, how did I do that last time? And I think, well, it's because you watch and you wait, and the game gives you the tools you need to get ahead. You just have to remember that you've got them.
So in that regard, you're disagreeing heavily with Dan Stapleton, is it, from IGN?
I would say so, yes.
Yes.
Yes. The one feeling I get coming off Bloodborne, and this is my last note I've written down. We've been through everything now, apart from one note.
Hold on, I haven't told you my big surprise yet.
Oh, you've got one? Okay, sorry, I didn't realise you had one. Go.
Yeah, sorry, I have played the game.
You have played the game?
I have played the game, yeah.
Wow. Have you made your character yet? Okay, carry on. I'm sorry.
I'd say kind of the moment that sticks out comedically and brilliantly, and it's not really a kind of in the same way as you saying that you discovered the sewers and stuff. I think mine was going on beyond the massive bonfire and taking on sort of all the guys that are there, hearing the guy banging on the door, going around to the next section, and I'm sure I was trying to get my souls back from a place that I died up near the top where there's the couple of dogs, and then there's the guys that move around. So you've got the fat bloke banging on the door, and then you go up some steps, and then some steps again. There's like a little sort of fountain type thing. There's a couple of dogs and some guys wandering in, and I'd headed up there to try and get. I'm sure it was like I died to I got stuck in a corner and died to sort of a mass of those guys and the dog. Yeah, and I wasn't sure where my souls would be, because you get your blood echoes. You get those things whereby sometimes they can be on the floor and sometimes they could be in someone that's nearby. It doesn't necessarily have to be even the sort of characters that attacked you. So I get up to near there and I start fighting, and then the guy who was banging on the door had run up behind me. And his eyes were glowing, so for some reason he got my blood echoes in there as well, but had run up behind me and like twatted me. And my instant response wasn't even a "Whoa!" It was a "What are you doing here?" It was shouting that at my own telly. But it really shocked me, and I think that was the point where I sort of knew that anything could happen within that regard. But it really caught me off guard, and I'm sure I must have run the level like quite a few times before that, but must have picked the chunky monkey off before I'd headed up there. But because I was making a beeline for it, because I'd got some echoes up there, it completely threw me, and I didn't think for a million years that he would have the blood echoes, but that sort of swooshy swirl that comes off the eyes when they run within that regard is awesome.
I remember that first one thinking, why is his eyes, because I didn't know either, I was thinking, why is this guy's eyes glowing? And then you kill him and like blood echoes restored, and you have that moment of, oh fuck, that you have to kill a thing to get them back, not just pick them up off the floor and run like hell. Like I love that. But yeah, I've had that giant guy chase me once or twice as well, and exact same reaction. Why are you here? When? Why? You were banging on the door quite happily, and like, what next? Bin bag crows? Like, who next?
I think I've named them wonderfully with the bin bag chicken crows.
They really are as well.
They really are, but they are quite creepy. And I hate
the way they stay quiet and then go, Grah! And just that horrible roaring screech they do.
It's like somewhere between a chicken and a dog.
It's between a chicken and a dog.
Yeah. My new album.
Final closing thoughts on Blooders before we move on to the other thing we need to talk about today. Is that Blooders for me now, because obviously I'm, like I say, once again I'm quite near the end. Blooders has become that book that I can't put down. You know when people tell you about a book and they're reading it and they have to stay up late just to finish it. Bloodborne is that. Bloodborne is absolutely unequivocally that for me at the moment. Like, I can't even perceive playing anything else until I've got this done. Dark Souls 2 has turned up. I haven't put it in yet. I won't put it in yet. I have to close this off. And I realise that I may have missed a few chapters of the book by missing areas completely. And I'm now going back to reread those chapters to extend the metaphor slightly. But I have not known a game in a very, very long time that has grabbed me in the way that this has grabbed me. And like, even like Souls 1 and Souls 2, I mean, we stretched them out for the podcast, so I was able to kind of pace myself and just do one area a week and be done with it. Because, you know, we're charging through at my own pace here. I really am like, I go to bed thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. I'm having nightmares about areas that really, really like shake me when I go through them. Like, really, I have a couple of phobias that are very, very well represented in this game. Very well represented. So you know that thing you hate? Here's an infinite amount of that thing you hate. Like, seriously. And it's got to me, and it's in my fucking head, and I can't stop talking about it. And people at work are now bored to tears of me talking about it, because I just get there and I'm still thinking about the stuff I was doing like the night before, and like they think, oh, then this connects to this, and then I've read this item description, but that means that, but does that mean that that guy is all he seems to be? And oh god, and it's got in my freaking brain. And I am fairly sure the next thing I do is the final part of the game. I am fairly sure the next thing I do, because it has a very kind of ominous feel to it.
But do you want to do that, or do you want to go through the game again, just trying to find all the quirks before you hit endgame?
I am doing everything possible to not go and do that.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Jesus, I have now officially broken my own internet checking, and I've just looked up the name of areas. To think, right, have I done this? Have I seen that? What's that area called? Or I've heard about this place. Is that a place you can go to?
Suppose that's legitimate when you're this far.
I'm this far. I don't want to miss anything. There's a certain sanctity of the first run, but I also want to see this all, you know, first time through, you know, as it is. I just want to know where the places are, and then once I'm there, I'll do them by myself. Like, I just want to know where they are. And I mean, it's really funny when you look back and it's how much of the game is actually optional. Like, you think, I missed that area and this area. What? And there's proper, like, massive chunks of content that are entirely optional, which I'm sure will, put massive lore significance. And I mean, for instance, I found my first Covenant 44 hours in, and I'm thinking, what? How many are there? If I've only found this one now.
See, there's your challenge.
It's mad. Like, I've got to find the rest. I've got to work it out. I mean, I know may have blocked myself off from one or two of them just by virtue of doing things that kill them. Like, for instance, the whole music box thing. I've never picked that up because I killed Gascoigne before doing anything else in that area. So I go back and the little girl just sort of says a couple of lines, but that's it. She doesn't say anything else past, like, my mummy's gone, that sort of thing. That's all she says to me now. And I know I've missed that on that character, and I'm just sort of in that weird point where I'm wondering what else it's possible to miss.
Remember that point where we had that conversation, because I was just sort of it was the whole of the level was like some sort of Lazarus pit for me. I was just going around it with buying different weapons, trying different weapons, just looking all over the place. And when I mentioned it to you, you didn't know what I was talking about, and that seemed to ignite you a little bit, because you were like, wait, what? Where?
Yep.
And you can guarantee that those conversations are going on all across the internet. Plus, the different variations of the things that have happened. So
yeah. Plus, it's really nice when you see someone struggling on Twitter with a certain boss. There's one particular one that I've seen come up a lot, and I've been able to say, do you want some tips? I always ask people, do you want some tips? Little tips to how to beat it, and they inevitably will say yes. Because
a lot of my favourite Twitch streamers are doing Bloodborne at the minute, which means I can't really watch. And although I have noticed that I had a conversation with Gadget Girl Kylie, and she's not a Souls fan, and she's mentioned that she's tried the games and they didn't really click with her, which is fair enough, but she's not picked up Bloodborne, but she's fascinated with Bloodborne. She says she's watched loads of streams, and she really likes it, and she's tempted. And I was saying that the same sort of or a similar degree of design that was in Soul Sacrifice Delta, which she absolutely loved, I think is prevalent in Bloodborne. That kind of dark, twisted fairy tale. But she said she's been watching the streams and she's loving what she's seeing. So I'll be really curious to see if she jumps in and sort of what she makes of it, because I love those Soul Sacrifice Delta vids, and that got me into the game in of itself. So.
Ooh. So yeah.
I will say at this point we had, because I was asking various questions on Twitter about Bloodborne, and indeed I'll go on to Twitter responses with folks who I was asking if they were going to go to Dark Souls 2, or if they were going to stick with Bloodborne. But we had a letter I still call it we had an email from Benjamin, who said, "Good morning, guys from the US. So I've been a fan of your podcast since I discovered Dark Souls. I got sucked in so far into the lore that just playing was not enough. I needed more info, and the discovery of your podcast was born. From there I listened to Bonfire Side Chat and our Australian friends, the Dark Souls 2 as well. But you guys were my first and favourite."
Oh,
I know, thank you. I even wrote a review on iTunes, and to my great delight I felt like a celebrity as you read my review on the show. Makes me dead smiley, this. I pre-purchased Bloodborne from my local GameStop and have been enthralled ever since. I went in pretty much blind, avoiding as much as possible. The atmosphere and feel of this game resonates like nothing since my first steps in Demon's Souls, and I'm loving every blood-filled second. Even as I bashed my head against Central Yharnam, I didn't desire to stop but to forge ahead. And yes, the fear. Oh, how the fear has returned. As I get deeper into the levels with no lamp in sight, I marvel at the wonderful feeling of anxiety of just what's around the next bend. I've soloed the first 5 bosses I've encountered, but have offered my assistance in many a jolly cooperation match with our fellow lovers of these games. I love the look, the feel and the marvel of this game. I eagerly anticipate many hours of play, the anger, fear, joy and lore yet to come. Please guys, keep up the great work and the great show as I will continue to listen, laugh and drink my coffee, brackets not tea.
Ooh.
favourite listener.
Worst listener.
Be quiet, Orange. Right along with you, fellows. That's from Ben. So thank you very much for that, Ben. That's really kind, and guys, made me double smiley. So,
I'm grinning like a goon now. Oh, cheers, dude.
Thank you. So yeah,
praise the Ben.
Praise the Ben indeed. So I put the question onto Twitter as to whether folks were going to be picking up the new iteration of Dark Souls 2 on the new gen consoles, or as to whether folks were going to be sticking with Bloodborne, or I don't know, their thoughts as to whether Dark Souls 2 was valid, if they enjoyed the original one, if they hated the original one. It went in sort of quite a few directions. So James Carter said that he's definitely picking it up, and he's wanting to play it along with us, which is double cool.
Yeah,
the mighty James Carter.
What's his Twitter name?
What for the wolf?
That was the best interpretation I've ever heard of that.
What for the wolf? That's probably better. Anyway. So Ollie the Iron Golem said, I'm getting it digital on PSN, so I'll have it waiting for when I'm finished with Bloodborne. So some folks wanting to kind of get the Bloodborne experience before they delve into Dark Souls 2 again. Jordan Scott said, I'll be picking it up on my Xbox One simply because I want a Souls game on each next gen console, which is a cool thought, actually.
It's kind of cool. Yeah. Spread the love.
Because I wondered at a certain point as to whether Microsoft might be tempted to try and get an exclusive with Dark Souls in the way that Bloodborne is exclusive to PS3. And various folks chimed in quite sensibly by saying that that really wouldn't play out in Japan.
No.
And even sort of as to whether Namco Bandai would want to, I don't know, take a portion of the franchise that they're trying to build up constantly and just have, I don't know, just have a portion of it on one console and then maybe the rest coming as a timed exclusive later down the line. But yeah, I still look at that and I'm kind of curious as to see whether it'll come to fruition, just simply because Bloodborne's been such a big deal for PlayStation. So Jordan goes on to say, I'm either going to do a straight up two-handed approach or use dual weapons. I never thought I would enjoy it until Bloodborne. And I've mentioned that Bloodborne's changed the way that I play Dark Souls 2. So I'll go into that in a little bit. Caleb said, sticking with Bloodborne and the beautiful Lovecraftian horror.
Yeah.
Pierre says, I'm getting it for the PS4. We'll stream it at some point. Also, probably won't even start it before I finish Bloodborne. So again, sticking, like wanting the full experience before going into something else. So
yeah.
But notice that these people aren't saying, well, when I finish Bloodborne, I'll buy it, because I know that Pierre's already bought it on disc, because I've seen.
Oh, everyone's buying it now.
Put it on. You've got the thing sort of further down where Ollie said, I'm getting it digital on PSN, so it's ready for when he finishes Bloodborne. So it's available at a price on like digital and retail. The price will probably come down for when those folks have finished Bloodborne, but that's not an option. That they want it for now. It has to be there ready.
It's there. It's ready.
Yeah.
You're going to do it anyway. It's done.
So Vade Van Oden says, sticking with Bloodborne, I played the hell out of Dark Souls 2, so I'll go back to it at some point, though. It's a great game. Let me see. Mo said, I think they chose the wrong timing. I need some time to return to a Souls game after finishing Bloodborne. So waiting it out. I think there's something to be said for wallowing in an experience sort of afterwards. I mean, I've had times with Bloodborne sort of early on where I've enjoyed the experience so much. Part of enjoying that has been putting the pad down, because I don't want to just motor through to somewhere else and get fatigue or any of that sort of stuff. I've wanted to sort of have a little closure on the day and just go and just think about the things I've done. So I can see that when it comes to the whole game, certainly, yeah.
I would say there is a definite argument for the fact that this Scholar has come out very, very close to Bloodborne. And I don't know. I can't see myself playing like a lot of people here. Like, can't see myself playing it until Bloodborne's done. But I don't know. It just feels so close. This
was the point where we found out that Darren Foreman had platinumed Bloodborne.
Insane.
That PlayStation actually checks the PS4 share hashtag, and they were gobsmacked. But I know, sort of following through with this sort of question as well, that Darren really, really disliked Dark Souls 2. So to throw himself into Bloodborne and enjoy it to the degree where he's platinumed it this quickly says something, I think, about how Bloodborne's clicked for him, really. Stu Linfield said that, because part of the sub question was if people were going to go into Dark Souls 2 and play with a more aggressive style and kind of ditch the shield. And he said that's how I played Dark Souls 2 in my first playthrough. Might be why Bloodborne doesn't seem such a big change in combat style. I remember watching a lot of Dave Klein's Twitch streams through his playthrough of Dark Souls 2, and he was playing like two-handed without shield. I think the shield was more of a stamina buff
on the back
more than anything. And at that point I couldn't equate to playing the game like that. I just couldn't. So
not on the first run. I mean, I would go on to become Captain Billy Big Balls No Shield after my first run, but I couldn't imagine doing it on the first time. No.
Our boy Stooch says thinking of getting it on Xbox One, and never played the new Parliament chapters of Parliament chapters.
Not the Sunken King stuff.
Yeah, I think that's probably what.
Let's assume it was that.
Yeah. I'd just not heard them called that before.
I've not played them at all, so I don't know.
Parliament chapters of Dark Souls 2, so it'll be fun to play on again. So it's cool. Timothy Moore says I'm going with DirectX 11 Steam version. Can't argue with £20. I haven't played Dark Souls 2 in a few months, so excited to dip back in.
Well, hey.
Let me see. Sean Hall, Stars Tyrant on Twitter, said grabbing PS4 Scholar. Really looking forward to playing through again. Loving Bloodborne 2 though. The Law Hunter said
friend of the show, Sinuwu. Sean W.
Sean. I'll be on Blooders for a while, but I'll probably get it for PS4 down the road. And now we just need a Demon's Souls Dark Souls 1 PS4 release. I'd imagine that Demon's Souls HD is happening. I'd be very surprised if that's not happening.
I don't know. I'm not so sure.
The prominence.
I could see a Vita port before the PS4 port. I could see a Vita. We don't have a Vita Souls game yet.
Fuck the Vita.
But I love my Vita. I love my. Don't you dare! How dare you, sir?
But I think that Bloodborne is such a big deal to Sony now. I think that Demon's Souls HD is a given. I don't even think I don't even think there's a question mark about it. I think it's a given, and it wouldn't surprise me, depending on how quickly they can get it up and running. Obviously, but they've got their lighting engines, and they've got. I know when they were getting the engine sorted for Dark Souls 2, they were saying that it was quite an adaptable engine that they built on PC. I think that could be ported to quite a lot of systems. So as to whether how easy it is to plug PS3 Demon's Souls into that, or run it through, or tweak it up, or whatever happens. We've got two teams at From that we know about that have done Bloodborne and Dark Souls 2. That was really before the Kodansha takeover, so it's not without. No, I don't know. It's not one of those things.
It's possible. Okay, here's my wish list. If we do a re-up, a Scholar of the First Sin edition of Demon's Souls, for instance, as you were, keep it exactly the same, except for world tendency stuff, because I still don't get that. I've read about it and I still don't understand it. I've read very clever people talk about it and I just still can't even get my head around how to manipulate it.
A lot of world tendency stuff was brilliant. No, a lot of world tendency stuff was brilliant. They could make it a little clearer as to how to affect white and black. But I mean, I knew about the defeating of the bosses and all that kind of stuff. But and I hope that they bring the special events in there as well, because they were great. Where you get all white and all black, and certain days like Valentine's Day, and get people to vote on which one they wanted, and those were great. So I think there's real scope to celebrate that, especially if, say, Demon's Souls HD comes out in December or something. Having like a Christmas and a New Year one, and a Boxing Day one, like alter the world tendencies, and I just think that'd be really cool. But then again, it is my favourite game ever.
That is true. So do we have any more tweets?
We do.
Wow, keep going. Look at you.
Yeah, we've got quite a few. Global Mega Dude Danny Bucks said,
can I just say, amazing handle.
Yeah,
really good.
Said, I'm getting the PS4 version. It'd be nice to play something safe and easy after Bloodborne has kicked my head in for a solid week. To which John Kinney999 on Twitter said, same, PS4 for me. New Vicar, NeoLoki55 says, reading the comments, I'm slightly surprised that no one is saying anything negative towards Dark Souls 2. A time ago, that's all you'd hear. I felt like a constant defender of Dark Souls 2, whether it was on Twitch, Reddit or Twitter. It was depressing. I had to stop reading comments. A lot to love about Dark Souls 2, but since it wasn't as good as Dark Souls and mechanics had changed, people talked a lot of shit. With Bloodborne being the masterpiece it is, I wonder if some people's attitude will change. This community only works as one. It's really good comment, actually. But
great comment.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know. I've always noticed with Final Fantasies that everybody hates the current one until the new one comes out, and then people come out of the woodwork and say that the previous one was amazing. That's happened ever since like 7.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that will change, and also we'll come on to Scholar in a minute, but I think it changes things up quite a lot. Yeah, we'll say Stella King Sai said, do you think Bloodborne will see any additional content? As such, it would be a worthy and welcome sale, surely. I think that's a given.
I think it's going to happen. I don't know in what form it will take, but
I wonder if they're holding anything back from us, like in the same way they did with the Artorias DLC. Because if he's got something that will just... If he's got the pretty pink bow sort of to tie things up with. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd like something on that ilk, because, I mean, like, everything that is mentioned, you think maybe I could go there, you generally can. There's a few things hinted about, and I think I'd like to know more about that, and maybe I've missed the area. It's entirely possible I've missed the area, but there's a few things I'd like to see expanded upon, like some other stuff. But I got to play it faster, please. Oh God, it's killing me that I can't talk about it with you.
So, we've got to go through it bit by bit, otherwise we'd have no podcast.
Okay, we need to record one podcast every hour for the next 3 weeks.
So yeah, with regards to Scholar of the First Sin, Stu Linfield sort of said he'd only be interested if Miyazaki himself had remixed it. A good game, but so hollow. They'd have to change a lot to get me interested enough to buy it again so soon. A possible purchase when discounted. We're good to hear what they've done. The problems I had were pretty major, so best not to get me started. Besides, I have Bloodborne now, and it feels like the sequel Dark Souls deserved. I'm in love. So yeah, that's. I think that's the majority. I will just say, because it's here and it's another big smile. Kati Chipati on Twitter said, "Listen to Twin Humanities podcast for the first time in a long time last night, and I wondered why I ever stopped. It's such good nattering. So thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Kati Chipati.
Right. So
we are now at the hour and a half mark. And we haven't talked about the other game yet.
Yeah, so this was this was the other side of it. So with regards to Scholar of the First Sin, the first thing I'll ask is, do you think it's a good time for Bamco to be releasing it?
That is a hard question to answer. I'm going to answer with yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because the Souls hype has never been higher. Obviously, Bloodborne is riding that hype train hard right now. And what better time to get people buying Souls, Miyazaki games, than when the hype train is in full force? And I think that has done wonders for it. But I think no, because for someone, imagine you're the person who's not played either, who's not played Dark Souls 2 and has not played Bloodborne. It's a lot to to take in from one after the other. I feel like it would be a hard choice to decide which one you pick up or which one you play. And I know a lot of us, we know what's going on with Souls. We don't need to say, we don't know which game to buy because we're going to buy both anyway. But for the new person who's coming in, it's a lot of games in 1 month, and people can't always afford to buy, a game every couple of weeks like some of us can. They can only afford to buy one every few months or so, And I'm just worried that it's too soon, and I'm worried that it's maybe getting a little bit lost in the Bloodborne hype. It's coming out, but the internet is nowhere near as insane as it was for Blooders a week or two ago.
I think there's two ways of looking at this. That it's also, I've noticed that it's kind of been surfing the wave of hype for Bloodborne as well. That a few folks have said, well, wouldn't it have been better in January when there were very few games coming out. Plus, it would have been a nice lead into Bloodborne. But the more I've thought about that, the more it seems, the more I'd actually sway against that. That by, I don't know, I've seen a lot of articles going side by side with, Bloodborne's coming out, Dark Souls 2's coming out. I wonder what they're both going to be like. To be honest, I've been quite impressed with the fact that PlayStation Access have been running so many Scholar of the First Sin videos when you could quite easily have said that their priority might have been their own game. But I've seen some really good and long videos on there. But my thought at this point is that it's actually the perfect time for it to come out, because I think that the people who didn't think Dark Souls was for them wouldn't have picked it up in January. Even if Bloodborne was coming, I think there could have been the aspect that they may have got a measure of Bloodborne from Dark Souls 2. No criticism of Dark Souls 2, but that could have put them off Bloodborne.
Ooh.
If they'd not clicked with it. So
that's an interesting think.
And I think that there has been the question as to whether you could go from Bloodborne into Dark Souls 2, and I can equivocably answer that with yes. I think that if somebody's clicked with Bloodborne, they will click with Dark Souls 2 very, very easily.
I'm very worried about the fact that my hands have now adapted to Bloodborne, and the fact that the buttons do slightly different things.
Don't be.
Oh, okay.
Don't be. I promise you. So let me see. So you've got it, haven't you?
It turned up at work the other day. The PS4 edition is sitting there waiting to go. We're going to be touching into that together on the PlayStation 4 version. I know you've been hammering through Bloodborne, and work shifts were quite wonky for me last week. Me too. I didn't really get days off properly last week.
So Scholar arrived on Wednesday morning ahead of the Thursday release in the UK, and it's out next Tuesday in America, as we said. I picked up the Xbox One and PS4 version. In one way to contrast and compare for the podcast, because I know a lot of people will go, well, what are the differences? And there was that curiosity as to whether the Xbox One version would have a greater population of players than the PS4 version, with the Bloodborne hype on the machine that they don't have.
Yeah.
Transferring over to sort of the Xbox One and Dark Souls 2. So I was really interested to see how that would adapt, really. And folks have been saying that there has been a decent amount of folks playing Dark Souls 2. So that again leads me to believe that a lot of people might have gone through Bloodborne, loved Bloodborne, and just thinking, this is knocking about for 30 quid? Fucking hell, yeah. Because let's face it, a lot of the brand new releases are 50 odd quid.
It's just been crazy. The prices I've seen. I mean, I picked up for 32 myself.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I eventually went with Simply Games because I did the thing on Twitter where I was asking about Bloodborne and how retailers had serviced people's orders. And I know that Amazon were more or less delivering on Saturday. Zavvi, Christ, I didn't get my Nightmare Edition until Monday. And Simply Games, people were saying like they got theirs the Tuesday, like before.
Crazy.
Which was amazing. So on the Monday, I looked at the website and they got the date for the following week. They got the American date on the booking. I sent them a message on Twitter saying like, it's this Thursday. I didn't hear back from them, but the next day when I looked, it just said in stock. So I ordered the games at about 8:30. Received an email sort of directly after, about half an hour after, saying that they posted it. And then half an hour after that, received a text to confirm it, and they arrived the next morning. Can't say fairer than that. That's awesome. So double impressed, Simply Games. Thank you. But yeah, so it was the Xbox One version that's gone in first.
Okay.
Saving.
Have you put both in yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
I'm saving the PS4 version for us.
Comparisons will come later.
But I wanted to. I don't know. I haven't really got that many games from Xbox One as well. So our friend Sean McElroy is picking it up on Xbox One. I haven't co-opted any Dark Souls with him since I coerced him into buying the Prepare to Die edition.
Oh, wow.
Like years and years ago. So yeah, it's going to be nice to maybe have sort of a bit of a Skype chat with our Sean and sort of smash into stuff. And I know that Sean's a big defender of Dark Souls 2 as well. So yeah, that's going to be nice. But that's the version that's gone in. So early thoughts as I quench my aching throat with.
It sounds like that had capital letters in it.
Early thoughts then.
Early thoughts. Whoosh whoosh.
So at this point I've done Forest of the Fallen Giants.
Yep.
Hades Tower of Flame.
Yep.
Most of the Bastille.
So you're cracking on.
Most of the No Man's Wharf.
Right.
So
okay.
I've smashed into that's as far as I've got. I've not beaten the Sentinels yet in the Bastille, and I've not gotten as far as the boss in No Man's Wharf yet.
Still pretty quick though. I mean, considering the work shift you've been on, and that's pretty good.
Let me say, I've done so much fucking about leveling up in this game, and so much co-op that that doesn't even come into consideration. I've put a lot of time into this since Wednesday, and yeah, to sum it up, Scholar of the First Sin New Gen is absolutely fucking stunning. Like proper stunning. Even early on when I got to Medulla, because there's the screenshot facilities now on Xbox One as well. I took a picture. It was like, fucking hell, how nice does this look? And it genuinely took me back. In Things Betwixt, there are changes.
Okay.
And there are some have been mentioned before. One of them I kind of knew going in, but I haven't had first-hand experience with it. But there are changes in Things Betwixt, and it's not a case of, because you wouldn't really expect new enemy placements and things betwixt.
Not in the tutorial.
Most of it's a tutorial level, yeah, but there are changes in... I'm not going to say what, but there are changes in things betwixt. So, yeah, I love Dark Souls 2. And the amount I love Dark Souls 2 genuinely increases by the month. I know there are aspects that folks didn't click with, and I can hear all the criticisms about hitboxes and bosses, and most of them being men in armor or things like that. But the game genuinely has a spell on me.
I think for me, like the balance Dark Souls 2 hits is that from a plot and lore-wise, it's not quite as rich as Dark Souls 1, and the same with the world, it's not quite as interconnected, but mechanically, plays like a goddamn dream.
I would disagree with you. For me. Yeah, I would disagree with you on that, because one of the criticisms is the story, and I counter that the story is exceptional. I don't think it's got the characters that Dark Souls had, but I think the story is absolutely incredible. And I've mentioned it numerous times before, but the nudge I had from one of our listeners regarding Glucatil and their own personal connection to that, I will forever be thankful for, because I've been falling into the game ever since that. That was my anchor, and I just started noticing stuff, and the game becoming more and more personal to me the more that I notice things. So I am incredibly close to Dark Souls 2, and sometimes you can go like, oh, this is my guilty pleasure. It's not even that. I absolutely love Dark Souls 2. And I'd not really encountered the scholar, the character, in the PS3 or the 360 update. But I flat out devoured the Bonfire Side Chat episode on the character, the voice acting, what it brings to the game, the dialogue in particular is incredible, and the vocal delivery as well.
I don't know anything about it yet. I'm trying to I want to stumble across it.
Yeah, I understand that, but Gary and Cole flat out ballpark that show, and I've listened to it 3 times.
Oh wow! Far.
It's just they nail it, and I afterwards in the run up to Scholar First Sin, I watched a video which didn't even vaguely do what Gary and Cole did. So yeah, it's an exceptional show, and I loved it to pieces, and that almost built up my anticipation for the new iteration. But so I went into the new game knowing about the new enemy places, new NPCs, the visual frame rate polishes, but not much more, and I'm genuinely floored by it. In Majula there were painted backgrounds, like really eye-catching painted backgrounds, and I was noticing landmarks in the distance, the Pursuer Arena, the Drang Lake Castle. They may have been there in the original, but I can't remember them. Suggest that their impact wasn't the same.
They were definitely not as crisp. There was definitely a lot more staring at them going on to try and work out what they were.
Yeah,
so I did that, and I was thinking, what is that?
But I don't know. There's this real painterly quality about them, almost like a matte painting in old sort of special effects movies that I really, really love. There's tweaks in the enemy placements, and the design of those I genuinely can't fault. One of the criticisms of the original was that rather than things being intuitive as they are in Dark Souls, that Dark Souls 2 kind of throws a lot of enemies at you at once and wants you to deal with it. The tweaks that they've done on that in the new one are very, very impressive. Okay. Just because a lot of enemy... It's not even down to enemies being in different places or them swapping people out, but it just looks like there's been this sort of very, very severe and bladed stare at every single level and going, how can we do this better? Not just how can we move things around, but where can we hide things? Where can we surprise people with the improved AI? Yeah. And getting enemies to do something bigger, more, better, more aggressively, more
throwing a different moveset that you've not seen. But none of it being kind of over-egging the pudding, or that thing often where you'll see a director's cut of a movie and it's too much.
Yeah. We're talking Resident Evil director's cut here, aren't we?
No,
it made it better.
I was talking more kind of a movie sort of director's cut, but yeah, there's the moment in the Forest of the Fallen Giants where you first meet the Hyde Knight, and there are enemies wandering around where you get mobbed. There are more enemies, but they're all lying on the floor. You've maybe got about 3 times as many enemies, so you learn to aggro, but with a degree of caution, and I think it's a decent lesson to learn. Whereas when you first climbed up that ladder, they all came at you at once, and that was probably Dark Souls doing what the criticism said, with them throwing lots of enemies at you at once. And I suppose you could say that you learn to deal with a pack in that, but it seems
you kind of thrust into it, aren't you? You can't take stock; it just begins.
There seems a greater lead in. That when here where you've got all those enemies on the ground and you get near one, it gets up, it learns your caution, but you're learning to pick enemies off at your own pace, and the Hyde Knight is not there.
Ooh.
So I've had jump scares, instances of, again, what the fuck are you doing there? But there's a wonderful sneakiness to certain placements and those new enemy movements. And even how those enemies are hidden is genuinely brilliant. If you think
are they hidden in a way where you could divine where they were if you were looking? Does it feel unfair at points, or are they well hidden in a way that you think fair enough? It
really doesn't. Like I'm not going to say where, because it is just a genius reveal. But there's a bit in the opening area where an enemy sort of comes out, and I was just like, if I could have put the pad down and applauded, I would have done. There are move sets in the No Man's Wharf, which I didn't realise enemies could do, and often on a number of the levels have changed a little bit as well. They're not just sort of dropped the enemies like dolls in new places. They've actually tweaked the actual level themselves.
How so?
The Bastille, a lot of the or in places there are certain parts of the building that seem a little bit different. No Man's Wharf has different stuff in it.
Okay.
There's a second boat that's crashed into the ground. There's you've got in No Man's Wharf you kind of go through and then you drop the Forest Lockstone and you light the whole thing up.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's still there, but there's little sconces all over the place that you can light now because of the lighting engine. The lighting engine's incredible.
Would you say that? And there are sconces in that area, but they're never really important. Are they definitely new, or are they just that you've not noticed them before? Yeah,
they are new.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they're placed at they're placed liberally around the area as well. Just simply because it's fucking dark now. That lighting engine, I mean, I was asked on Twitter a few days back if the lighting engine was back, and we never quite knew if that was sacked off for technical reasons or because it was too much throughout the entire game to have the game that dark. And I think it's probably a bit of both within the original. But there are places in the game, even in Forest of the Fallen Giants, where you will go into a room and it'll be pitch fucking black. Case in point, where the bonfire is where you first meet Valencia?
Yes.
You go up the stairs. The place where we there's the stairs, and then there's that run to a door where we always leave our signs.
Mm. Oh yeah, the little door at the side where there's the door you could smash.
Yeah, where you go up the stairs, and you can go in there. That room is absolutely pitch black now.
Ooh.
You can't see your hand in front of your face in that room unless you've got a torch. And there's a bit sort of further down. Let me think. If we're thinking of the level now, you go down the ladder from the bonfire, and you've got the bit where originally you've got a soldier that was sitting down near some stairs, and then one comes walking across.
Wanders over the bridge to wanders over the bridge to say hello. That's
different in of itself now.
Ooh.
But when you then go to the end of that corridor and you take a left, there's there's a room that's got an enemy on the floor that will get up, and you go up that massive sort of tree branch to the top, like rafters. But if you go right, you can go down some stairs and go into a run where there's loads of the turtle knights and stuff.
Turtles and pillars.
Yep. Turtles aren't there now. There's something else that's never been on that level.
Right.
But when you're human and you go down the stairs, it's absolutely proper super pitch black. There's a summon sign that's down there of a new character, and with them saying new NPCs most of the time. These new NPCs are summon characters.
Okay.
And
like Masterless Glencore and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's this sort of fat beardy bloke who sort of rises, and he instantly lights up the area with magic.
Ooh.
And then you go down through that level, and it's the bit that I put on Twitter the other day where I was just like, this looks incredibly pretty. So the whole of the room isn't lit like you'd imagine with flame. It's actually lit with blue magic. Ooh. So all of the shadows that are coming off of this bit of blue magic that he's put above your head, but he's also walking down there, proper soul arrowing the fuck out of anything he sees. And it looks brilliant, and it's terrifying as well. And the enemies down there are not in that level previously. And that's really neat. But there's lots of stuff like that which really caught me off guard. But there's been no point where I've gone, that wasn't as good as before. And if anything,
see, that's what I was worried about a little bit. Like they've changed it, but is it good? And that's really heartening to hear that they've changed it and it's really good.
Yeah, I genuinely think that everywhere that I've been thus far, there's not one decision that I'd say is worse in the new version. If anything, I'd say they've just looked at an area and have gone, right, this is what we need to do. So yeah. Let me think.
That's great. I mean, what? So it's like the best version that area could be.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say as well that I mean, I'm not going to go into any more detail than has been seen in the videos that have been showed pre-release, which showed you a little bit of
those videos I haven't really watched yet.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind me just
go for it.
laying a few sort of vague things out. Hades Tower of Flame now is the new skeleton graveyard.
Cool.
If you're going down there before Forest of the Fallen Giants, you're going to get fucked.
You realise as soon as I start playing, that's the first place I'm going now.
Seriously.
Just to see what happens.
You've now got 5 Hayden Knights in there.
Okay.
And they're all sitting down. And you've also got a massive dragon in there. But the point where you defeat the Dragon Rider, the Haydenites get up and start patrolling the level. And they're vicious as fuck. You've also got the thing, and this ties into an issue that I had with the original that's been sorted. The hitboxes appear to have been sorted.
Okay.
They're much more accurate. But the thing I liked about battling the Haydenites is that they've got that lightning crackle off their sword when it swings. That reaches for you. So at a point, if someone was swinging a sword normally and it would miss, that crackle will reach an extra bit. Will lurch out towards you.
Yeah.
That's cool. So so yeah, but imagine the point where you've beaten sort of, say, Dragon Rider, or you've beaten both of the bosses in the area, and maybe you're thinking, right, I'm going to have a little bit of a run. You go up those stairs from that opening bonfire. There's a Haydenite that's by the entrance to the Tower of Flame, who then starts walking down those steps. You've got that massive sort of knight that's just on the circular bit at the top of the steps.
Okay.
If you go towards the top of those steps, that thing will not only come towards you, but it won't turn back. It'll try to walk down the stairs and it will come after you.
Ooh.
The Haydnite, if it sees you, will run towards you and will attack you at the bonfire. If like I say, if you've defeated the bosses, that one's the Haydnite's walking down from the top. You've got that stone knight type thing that's just at the circular area. You've got like a couple of steps, and it then goes up to another area and a few more steps, and you've got one of the knights with the massive swords,
the big ironing board with a stick on the end.
Just before you get to that, there's another Haydnite that's sitting against that wall that's now getting up and walking around. You've got another one that's near the central area, another one that's near the Dragon Rider boss, and you've got two more in a different direction beyond that.
Christ.
And they're all walking around once you've defeated one of the bosses.
Because they're not easy, like, when you find them one by one. Like, beating one of them is a worthy achievement early in the game. I cannot imagine being able to have, like, a level full of them.
Because one of the criticisms that I saw elsewhere was that this was now quite cheap, that fighting them was too cheap and too difficult. But I found that if I got the fire longsword, and you know that kind of thrusty stab it does when you two-hand it, if you use that, it will you can run towards them and initiate the attack, and it will be far more successful than if you're trying to do a swing slash, because they can get near you.
Yeah, they can react faster. Yeah,
so I found that varying your attacks in that way is a big deal. But I am going into this using. I went in with a swordsman, so I got a.
Is that the dual sword guy?
Yeah, there's a scimitar in one hand and the
Valkyrie?
I think it's just the short sword in the other hand. But I switched that out to the fire longsword in one hand and the rapier in another hand. Okay. And haven't used the shield once and haven't missed it. My Bloodborne playstyle is now in full effect in Dark Souls. I'm kind of jumping around and I'm kind of varying the stabs. Weapon degradation does seem to be a little more vicious.
Because it's based on frame rate, isn't it?
Allegedly, yeah. And I don't know if they've kind of dialed that back, or if it's just a design decision where they've gone, right, you need to concentrate a little bit more of using more than just one weapon. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's the degradation is sort of twice as bad as it was normally, but it is there, and it has prompted me to think, what can I take out with my left hand and save the right, which is kind of cool.
Bring more than one mace, basically.
So yeah, the extra summons that you've got are a blessing and a curse.
Okay.
It's potentially an exercise in how much you want to test yourself, really. Say in a boss encounter, often what could still be a challenging fight with the original two summons from Dark Souls is relegated to an uber gank fest, where an enemy doesn't know where to turn and just dies in under a minute. I've been in,
as we coined it in Dark Souls 1, Artorias Tennis.
Yeah, I mean it's more so than that, because whereas like in the Artorias battle, if you've got sort of two people in there, you've got distractions either way, but the boss was given chance to move and react and make a difference.
Yeah,
I've been in battles where everybody just rushes on an enemy. They don't know where to turn, and it's literally like cha-chang, 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 and before you know it, they're gone, and it feels cheap.
If a boss can the bosses be stun locked like that?
I don't know, but it did. Four people essentially taking down a boss like that.
It feels more like, from the videos and the way I've heard people talk about it and the way you've described it there, it sounds more like sort of knockabout fun than the full kind of scary, challenge that it was probably envisaged at.
There's that aspect of it for the bosses. I mean, maybe on the later bosses, people like Smelter and stuff, it's going to be a bonus. But it's up to you to define how many people you really want to bring in there. Because I
suppose it's up to you, isn't it?
I fought the one of the bosses in Hades Tire of Flame, like the famous one, shall we say, with 4 people, and it was over in under a minute. I fought them with 2 summons, and it's been just right. So yeah, it's you have to really decide how you're getting the best out of the experience for that. But in the same way, I've also been part of a wander through the levels with 3 other people and with 3 other people going through the level, and in certain regards it's great because the levels there are so spacious, and because you have got quite a lot of enemies, everybody can pull in different directions. And for example, you've got the original pursuer fight that you've got up on that elevated platform now has dead bodies on there as well that will get up. Which in that case it worked really well to have loads of people there, because it's kind of gone, and they don't get up straight away either. They kind of wait to get up. And that in of itself is pretty cool, because everybody was seemingly kind of like, what the fuck? And you're then trying to take them out, and you've still got the pursuer to deal with. So that was one where you've got multiple people around you, and it was still pretty fucking cool. But where it's just the boss on their own, I wasn't particularly impressed with that. But you're left to divine as to
how much you want to do it yourself. I mean, I would. Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward now to trying that, and not bringing them into my world perhaps, but hanging around as a summon and seeing what it's like, seeing if people do bring in like 3 people at a time, or if people are happy to stick with 1 or 2.
But it also caters for it also caters more than ever for different skill levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
If somebody genuinely is struggling, they can bring in quite a few people to help them and go through the level. And in particular, I'd not really noticed much of a problem with the extra summons through the levels, as I said. But when I was going down into the cavern with the new chunky beardy guy with the magic, running through that with a number of other people and him, all cannoning the fuck out of things that I'd never seen before in that level. Awesome. Yeah. Absolutely awesome. Carnage. Beautiful carnage. So, yeah, dead impressed.
With all you're saying is, it sounds like it's going to make my my pacifist run that I started on the PS3 version, sounds like it's going to make that more viable, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I think it probably will do. So NPCs.
Okay.
I've alluded to this a little bit, but I've not encountered any more characters in the same way as I expected. There'd be like another Slayer or an Artorias or somebody memorable to talk to. I haven't encountered that thus far. I have noticed seemingly, I don't know if I'm going bonkers on this, but seemingly more dialogue from certain characters that have been there before. Which is very interesting. But I could be going mad over that. I might just be going like, oh, that's new, and it's not.
You just never pressed X enough before.
But there are new summons hidden around the levels. There's a new summon in No Man's Wharf, like brand new character. I mentioned the one in Forest of the Fallen Giants. Before you get to the Sentinel battle, there's actually 2 female summons that you can pick up, and one of them's a caster.
Okay.
Both look amazing, absolutely amazing. One of them kind of reminds me a little bit of the blonde-haired knight in Game of Thrones. You know, the big tall woman.
Brienne of Tarth.
Brienne, yeah. One of them sort of reminds me of her sort of quite a bit, but one of them is a caster as well. And whilst I dropped into that level and did get hammered, they were really adept, shall we say. They're not fucking about at all. They were really adept within that battle.
Pretty sure you say the blonde lass has been in before. I think it's Pilgrim Belclair.
Okay.
She's been there before, but yeah, no, she having a couple sounds brilliant.
Yeah, and I like the fact that with those summons they bring something different to the fore, and having 2 of them there, especially for the Sentinel battle, again feels like a nice design choice, because that can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah, it was definitely the place where a lot of people got frustrated, wasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned the lighting engine. Differences between versions. According to Digital Foundry, the PS4 is the more proficient, holding more frames. And they said the Xbox One version felt sluggish at times, but I genuinely haven't found anything on the Xbox One version that's felt anything other than swish as fuck. So yeah. I'll be quite interested to dive into the PS4 version. I
have literally never ever been concerned about frame rates. Like, not once in my life has that ever been an issue. Digital Foundry is a very good website, but it encourages some very bad thinking.
Yeah.
And this the same one that says, you should never buy Bayonetta on the PS3, for instance, because it is the worst version. It was fine. I don't know what the problem was. I played it. It was great. I don't get frame rate people. I really don't get frame rate people.
Well, on this, I mean, I'm looking at it now. They were saying that Xbox One plays a persistent price for matching the PS4's visual standard. Both formats target 60 frames per second and engage VSync at all times, but Microsoft's platform suffers the greater drops between the two in each scene of our frame rate analysis. The Forest of the Fallen Giants area is a good example where a barrage of enemies causes a readout between 40 to 50 frames per second on Xbox One, while PS4 operates within 50 to 60 frames per second range. Even while uncontested beneath the giant arching trees of things betwixt, regular margin of 10 frames per second exists between the two. PS4 operating at near 60 frames per second, while the Xbox stutters along at 50.
Oh no, just 50? This is exactly, you have exactly outlined why I literally give zero shits about frame rate. That is just dull.
Unfortunately, this has the knock-on effect of making the combat sluggish on Xbox One. Genuinely, the combat is not sluggish on Xbox One.
Fuck off. Seriously.
It says here in one example, an encounter with the last giant boss gives us our lowest dip, a record tumble to 36 frames per second.
Have these people
floating souls?
These people never been to Blighttown? Honestly,
during these battles, right? For the last giant, I've had myself and 3 other people for most of the fights with the last giant. I've really enjoyed the battle. It's been chaotic. It's been brilliant. It's a boss fight that I do quite enjoy because I love the look of it. But there's never been a point where I've gone, fuck these frame rates. And
the fact that you have to slow it down and analyse it to work out what's different. Like, honestly, if you just can't just look at it and see a difference with your eyes, then it shouldn't be worth paying comment on. It really shouldn't. Like, who gives a piss? Really?
Yeah, I mean, like, do you remember that great one with
Mario Kart?
Mario Kart 8.
Yeah.
Like it was occasionally dropping down to 59 frames per second.
Give me my frame back, Nintendo.
Seriously.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so if I'd have read this before I played it, and I was buying one version, I'd have made the informed decision. I'd have gone, right, the Xbox One version isn't up to snuff. I'm definitely buying the PS4 version. I genuinely, from playing it and enjoying it and loving it, it's fast as fuck at 60 frames per second anyway. There's been nothing that I've noticed. There's been no point where I've kind of gone, what? Because, I mean, I have had 2 instances on the first day of multiplayer, like a
crashes, didn't you?
4-part multiplayer crashing to the title screen.
Okay.
Which was a bit like, what? But that's really the only thing I can say performance-wise that I've noticed.
Yeah. I mean, as a Sony pony, you know, I'll take any excuse to kind of go, well, my one's the better. But like the way you've described it, like there's no real difference. Like, it's not getting to Blighttown levels, so who cares?
It's just
like if the Xbox One version ran like Blighttown, then fair enough.
Or even dived into that. I mean,
worthy of comment.
And yeah, I'm you know, I've played 4 or so areas in the game, so I can't really attest to anything beyond that. But I genuinely, if it is dropping 10 frames here and there, or if it's dropping like to 36 frames per second in that boss fight, genuinely I didn't notice it.
Yeah, I mean, let's be Blooders runs at 30, and it's great.
Yeah,
fucking
it is
great.
Although didn't we get that the great comment from Total Hobnob about where he was saying that given the reviews of Bloodborne, it might be worth soldiering on, even though it's only 30 frames per second.
Honestly,
how did we play games before you had your $3,000 rig?
You've actually given me a migraine.
But I will say that if people are going from Bloodborne to Dark Souls 2 with Scholar of the First Sin, I think that they'll be very happy. They played very, very differently, but I've had a ton of fun adapting my Bloodborne playstyle to Dark Souls and finding that I don't want to use a shield at all anymore. That I've become a strategic killer.
I think that's going to stead you well for when you do get back to Bloodborne. I think that's going to stead you really well, because my playstyle is adapted before, in Dark Souls 2 much further before that, to a no shield run, and I found I clicked with Bloodborne a lot faster. I think I really think you're going to go to Bloodborne and be like, oh, and it's going to just work much better. I think
in the same regard, I'm really interested to see to go through Scholar of the First Sin with you, because in many regards, sort of, obviously I'm a little bit ahead on this, but it sort of dials back to when we first started Dark Souls now.
Yeah.
So with me sort of knowing a few things, and you coming into it fresh, and me sort of feeding on your enthusiasm and your surprises within that. But
we've got that going both ways, haven't we, this time?
Yeah, we have, which is kind of cool. And I'm quite chuffed that there's been, and it wasn't a preordained thing, that we've sort of divvied up on this.
We have.
That we've pulled in different directions, because it makes it a little bit interesting, I think. Because we'll obviously in time do a co-op run of Bloodborne.
Yeah. And we're definitely returning back to the co-op run of Dark Souls 2 as well. That isn't dead, don't worry, listeners.
Well, this is what I was going to say, that like the plan is to catch up to the place that we were in our original Dark Souls 2 run.
In Scholar.
In Scholar, yeah. So we want to do a big episode with us going through and getting to the point where
right
we left
back up
off.
to what was the last thing we did? The last thing we did was probably the Bastille, wasn't it?
Was it? Did we do Huntsman's Copse?
We got to Huntsman's Copse, but we didn't do it.
Yeah. So getting up to the Bastille, I think is eminently doable, and that's all going to be one episode. It's something that I've had in mind structure-wise for the episode for a little while. I think in the back of my head it's going to be our best episode since Rules of Spite, which I really liked.
Because we did start doing this and then realised, hang on a second, the PS4 version's coming out soon.
Yeah, we did.
Shit.
I mean, and sort of getting back into the scheme of playing again, we sort of went on some sort of Uber run on Dark Souls 2, but we kind of knew that we were going to do this version anyway.
We knew it was a bit of an abortive run, but it was fun just to get back, wasn't it?
We just enjoyed sort of having a little bit of a twat about and a little bit of a co-op and stuff. I will throw out this question, though, to folks. In the run-up to recording that episode and us playing Scholar of the First Sin, if we streamed it, would people be interested in watching?
I think we're going to get yeses.
Because I think that might be quite cool for people to see sort of the giggles that happen. And then prior to recording the episode, folks can kind of chime in on their favourite bits, or the bits that they stuffed up, or the things that they did differently. Or it might be nice for that kind of audience interaction before we record the show, but the actual experience in itself isn't just you and I. It's other people kind of watching at the same time, so that might be kind of neat.
Multiple humanities, some would say.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts on that and stuff. You know, the normal places, twinhumanitiespodcast@gmail.com. Drop us a message on Twitter, either at our individual Twitters or the Twin Humanities one. That will be double groove like.
Yeah, right.
So otherwise, we're hoping to. Don't know. There's going to be lots of variety in the episodes. Really, we've got some guests coming up as well, talking about their love of Souls, their experiences with Bloodborne. Got a few other humanities coming up as well, sort of on the back burner, with stuff that we've not really done with that show for a while, which I'm looking forward to.
It's going to be a bit like free-form jazz podcasting for a while, isn't it?
Well,
whatever seems good, that's what will fit in. And I have an impending house move coming up as well, so there may be a small delay in service while the internet gets put back in. There's always been a buffer.
There's always been kind of a chatty chaos with regards to the show that we put out and kind of what we're doing this week. But hopefully that makes it a little bit unpredictable, and hope so. Right, are
you out of words?
I think I'm almost out of voice.
Yeah, I had to get Laura to go get me a drink halfway through because my throat was giving up. So yeah, I think that's done. So thank you everyone for listening to this bumper packed episode.
Also,
oh yeah, we've been other places, haven't we?
Yeah.
Do you want to do yours first, or shall I do mine? I'll do mine. It's already out. Right. I was invited on the lovely Chris Spann's podcast, The Recycle Bin, which you can find on Twitter, which is @RecycleBinPod, and it will then link you on from there. He invited me on. It's basically the Room 101 of video games. So I got to talk about all the things I don't like, and I had a lovely, lovely time of it.
I love that podcast anyway, and love Chris and Laura to pieces. But I genuinely think that was one of my favourite episodes that I've listened to. That was good conversation. Plus, thanks. It was interesting to hear you whoring it out elsewhere when mainly I've been the one that's been a dirty man.
Yeah. So what are you doing now?
Well, as we're recording this, it's Saturday evening of the 4th of April. I'd imagine this will probably go out tomorrow.
Maybe.
And on Sunday the 5th, the new episode of the outstanding Kane and Rince is out on, and they're talking about Dragon's Dogma from start to finish.
That's a cool game. I'd love to hear people talk about that. Who are talking about it?
It was myself, Sean Bell from Midnight Resistance, and Leon and Jay from Cane and Rinse. And I mentioned before that one of the reason that this podcast started up was Midnight Resistance, and in the first instance of that was listening to Sean and Andy Hamilton talking on their own. It might have been actually with Cara Ellis in the first episode that I listened to, but the second episode I listened to was something called Pod Night Resistance, where they got Midnight Resistance, David Turner's from Joypod, and Cane and Rinse were in the mix as well. So and I then branched onto Cane and Rinse and started listening to loads of those podcasts, but that sort of those two instances of episodes were the Kickstarter for us doing all of this. So always an honour to be on Cane and Rinse anyway. I really loved the Demon Souls episodes that I was on, but my first podcast with Sean, a little bit special because I think a lot of him. He's a lovely lad. So yeah, but there's good conversation between myself, Sean, Leon, and Jay, and I'd actually say that the game's one of my favourite games ever, and that conversation made it better.
Ooh, I can't wait to listen to it.
Particularly Sean explaining the endings, which he does with an eloquence that I couldn't even have approached for Dragon's Dogma. So yeah, I was genuinely honoured to be on, to me, amongst such good people, but really, really enjoyed the chat. So caneandrinse.com and have a listen and let us know what you think, and then listen to more Cane and Rinse and Midnight Resistance because it is good. Also, Recycle Bin.
Great shows all round. Don't we have lots
of
of friends?
I genuinely like it. I genuinely would like our Twitter peeps.
Cool. Should we cut it there then? Because we're nearly at 2.5 hours.
I think so, but it's been nice. Thanks for bearing with us as we rattle on. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We love you.
We love you in ways that we really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that got weird quick. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again next time with something. Who knows? Bye!
Bye!